Reporting on distress and trauma in 2020 and beyond is the topic for tonight, and of course it's all part of Mental Health Week, and the Minister for Health and Wellbeing, Stephen Wade, is here. Stephen, thank you very much indeed for coming. We really appreciate it. Put your hands together for the Minister.
It's a great pleasure to officially open tonight's Reporting on Distress and Trauma in 2020 and Beyond forum for media professionals. This forum could not be more timely. A drought begat bushfires, bushfires begat the pandemic, and of course many South Australians are enduring economic distress as the long-term impacts of the pandemic play out. But this forum isn't just about how you report to the South Australian public, it's about each of us. It's very important that you look after yourself, your family, your friends, your colleagues and your community.
So how do we as journalists, as reporters, as managers, just as people, handle what can be a double-edged sword, reporting on what can be extremely bleak and difficult issues which often elicit very high emotions, while all dealing with a personal toll in what is already a highly stressful environment? During so-called normal times, the first question we ask every day is simply, what does this mean to our readers? When the pandemic hit and we all shut down, we added another equally important question, and one that we'll continue to ask into the future. What does this mean for our people? Everyone struggles at some point in their life. It's a part of being human. And everyone at some point needs to ask for help. This is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. The ability to say, I'm not okay, I need support, is empowering. I'll now touch on one of the more vexed issues facing the media, and that's the reporting of suicide. It's not one I think we've really got right. With the best intentions in the world, I still think we're struggling to build a genuine path forward. Often when an incident is confirmed as a suicide, our default position is simply to ignore it. But I think we desperately need to rethink this strategy.
You know, ignoring suicide hardens its stigma. You know, if we don't talk about this stuff, it continues to calcify and get rigid and get hard and get harder. So we need you to be brave and be bold and take this on. A standard of moderation are 5 questions that you can ask, simple questions that you can ask. That if you're asking these, you can be certain that you're producing a piece of journalism that aligns with global guidelines and will be an ethical and a really good piece of journalism.
Copies of these and just looking through them, it's just ensuring you've minimised harm to those affected by suicide, telling the truth, taking care, avoiding stigma types, avoiding glorification as well. There are certain terms that actually glorify suicide, which are seen far too often still in media, and now with social media it's a different beast altogether. So it's really about doing our best work to shine and be the leading example. Also, is the information we're including useful? Are we really including this extra sentence because it's something the community needs to know? Or is it something we're including because now our story has a tiny bit more information than another website's story, and that's going to drive more clicks to us? So really have a think about that, because I think that's what's really driving a lot of misreporting, miscommunication, and stigmatization of suicide moving forward. And have we provided support to the relevant guidelines as well? Those in Australia being Lifeline, Beyond Blue, or if it's a demographic based, the Kids Helpline, Headspace, Lived Experience telephone service as well.
This is what we need: compassion, non-judgmental, self-determined. This is what we need from our media as well: a compassionate inquiry into our lives.
Some days I can't read the newspaper. I can't watch the news because, as a therapist, my bucket of sad stories and everything that's happened in that day, it's too much. But most of all, I think one of the things is the loss of meaning and hope. When you're exposed to those stories constantly, your view on the world can be very different to others that you're around. So one of the questions I quite often ask in my workshops is, how are you? How are you really? And how do you know?
The industry, when I came in, it was very cutthroat, very ruthless. there probably wasn't a lot of acknowledgement of mental health issues.
You can't actually distance yourself, separate yourself from the story, otherwise you're incapable of telling the story.
Has there ever been a time where you've left court and it has affected you for an hour or so afterwards and you've thought about it because it's been so detailed and so graphic?
Never for an hour. An hour is too short a period of time.
Oh, okay.
Days, weeks, months.
No, are you serious?
Absolutely, 100% serious.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Mark, there wouldn't be a night that I don't go home affected.
Yeah.
Quite simply.
How do you see the human person in front of you for the story and show the complete story of that and not the sensationalised, paper-selling version of it?
I never look at social media because I wouldn't get up on a Sunday morning if I sat and read what people, write about me. And that's what worries me for young journos today. Like, don't look at social media. You just find people that you really, really care about and just care what they think about your writing and nothing else.
Coming in contact with victims of crime is something we do daily. And I think one of the most important things is making sure as a journalist you do everything you possibly can to minimise re-traumatising victims. It's incredibly hard. They might be appearing before the District or Supreme Court and they have to personally read a victim impact statement, which is traumatic in itself. And then quite often, as a collective media group, we will approach them inside the building, tell them that we're there and we want to report on their particular case and this is why we want to do that. They are welcome. It's more of an invitation. They are welcome to speak to us out the front if they have a particular view. And if they say no, it's cameras down, they leave.
For 9 at the time, doing multiple crosses, on the hour about Phillip Hughes, he just sent me an email afterwards and gave me a phone call. And I remember thinking, wow, it actually really impacted me and made me think that was great just to then talk about it because we both went through it and we both dealt with it. And I think it goes to the point about journalists talking to each other.
The same incident that Dan was talking about before was the death of my son Michael, very publicly. And so it was his mates that were jumped on, when they left school. There's one particular news service which for 20 years my family and I will not watch. So those scars run deep.
There are examples of significant reductions in suicide deaths in different places around the world following the introduction of media guidelines. And there's increasing evidence that about the benefits of those stories. People who encounter a difficulty but then find a way of coping, reaching out, something that they do that can help other people.